Alright, welcome to the next Design Wall, episode 6. We're going to talk about Borderlands this week. Not this week, this episode, because these don't come out weekly. Okay, anyways. Borderlands, good game. Quite like it. A little bit thing about, quick disclaimer about the multiplayer. You know, like, okay, I've played this, played it through, beat it, all that stuff. And multiplayer is great, although it is very hard to find someone with a mic online. It's because people don't play with microphones, so nothing on them. Although I wish some games would implement a way to find out if people have mics and encourage them to use microphones somehow. Maybe I'll discuss that in my next video. But let's get right into it. So Borderlands, big open levels, kind of go anywhere, open world. So this kind of reminds you of Skyrim, right? A little bit, even though game completely different, it just kind of hits Skyrim there, big open levels, go do what you want kind of thing. Well, maybe not quite do what you want, but go do all these side quests and stuff. But, so, I'm just going to compare not a feature, but a mechanic in Borderlands to Skyrim. Okay, so, like I said, big levels, and Skyrim, you really get the feel of exploration and adventure and kind of new discovery. Borderlands, you don't get that. Why not? Why don't you get the same feeling? You have these big open levels, go where you want, kind of thing. And part of the reason, I think at least, is because in Borderlands, you can pretty much see the whole level. You go up to a cliff or something, or even just standing on the ground, it's very open and not necessarily flat, but there's nothing in your way. There's no obstacles blocking your view from most of the level. Whereas in Skyrim, a lot of the time you're either in a forest, on a trail, in between mountains or something, and you can't see a lot. Yes, there are areas where you can, like in Whiterun, or just outside of Whiterun, it's like giant open plains, but a lot of it you can't see a whole place, or there's always like a mountain in front of you or something, or a hill you can't see over, and you're like, what's behind there? I wonder, there's got to be something there, right? So you always want to go to the next thing because you never know what it's going to be. And is this a bad thing for Borderlands, that it doesn't, capitalize on this whole Skyrim exploration? No, I don't think so, at least. Borderlands isn't that kind of game. It feels like it almost could be, with just them promoting their big open levels, kind of open worldness of the game. Dreadlocks kind of being weird. Anyways, kind of big open worldness of the game, right? But Borderlands, it's a game about shooting a lot of guys with big guns and a lot of guns. That's what it's about at its core, and all mechanics work towards that. If you can, here I got a little diagram, So, in the case of Skyrim, this is the Gunzerker, although I realize now I should have drawn him as the Skyrim guy, the Dovahkiin. Anyways, so with Skyrim, whenever you're going across the world, exploring, you see something cool, you see something new and stuff, and it's like, it's always different. You never know what you're going to see. It's always new, exciting, and fresh. You're like, oh, there's a village over there. Look at that. Or, hey, look, there's a river. Or there's a path to the mountains I didn't see before. Let's go explore up there, see what I can find, kind of thing, right? And there's also, like, random things, like the dragons that come out at you. They're not predetermined. They're kind of random, from what I can tell, at least. But with, so that's, like, again, excitement, something new every time. With Borderlands, it's enemies. Enemy. Just always enemies all the way through. That's what you're going to find every time. There's nothing else besides shooting people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's what Borderlands is meant to be, and it does that very well. It has a lot of enemies, and you're always shooting those enemies. So, no, it doesn't capitalize on the exploration part, but that's not a hindrance to that game. I just want to kind of discuss why it didn't, even though it seemed like, oh, big open level, go where I want. Right? It should be able to do that. But no, that's not quite how it works. Another thing is, this is completely different to what I was talking about, but in Borderlands, if someone's talking to you, you can hear them in the 3D environment, hear them where they're coming from, you get further away from them, they get quiet. And what I've seen a lot of games do, which Borderlands has done great, is that when you get far enough away, it goes into like a radio communication. So instead of not being able to hear the storyline, or it just stopping completely if you get too far away and try and explore, you don't have to stick right next to the person the entire way. You get too far away, it just goes into your echo communicator, and you can go around wherever you want, still getting all the dialogue that you need. Good idea. Quite like it. Another thing that, again, not necessarily a bad thing, but kind of maybe, it's the monster closet. This is where the enemies come from. It's called a monster closet. It means you can't see in it. You don't it's just kind of like a black thing. No idea how to get in there. A door maybe, and enemies just keep filing out somehow. Obviously, no way can you fit that many enemies in that little thing, but they just keep coming out, right? So this, I think, is part of the reason, or it ties into the difficulty of the game. So in a lot of games, when difficulty is ramped up, the health and the damage of the enemies is ramped up. Sometimes they're smarter, so they get smarter. The number of enemies in a scenario is ramped up as well. This often happens with games to ramp up the difficulty. And with Borderlands, if we were ramping up the difficulty, instead of seeing just a few guys, patrolling around, like kind of realistic, you would see a bunch of guys running around a small area. Somehow they all fit in there. It wouldn't really make a lot of sense that way. Or if it was ramping up the difficulty and all it did was ramp up the damage of people and ramp up their health, yes, you could get rid of those monster closets. But you would have pretty much every person would be like a boss. They'd be a lot stronger than you. It'd be like a mini boss every time you fought someone, right? Or like every character would be a super badass. It wouldn't really work. Yeah, sure. People are like, yeah, all super badasses, but realistically, for most gamers, that wouldn't really work. So the number of enemies is a good, easy way of ramping up the difficulty. Yes, they do get stronger and faster. No, maybe not faster, but stronger, smarter, more health, whatever. But they don't get to the point where everyone's a super badass. Also, if, like earlier, all these guys were in the starting location when you walked there, they were all just hanging around, and they all saw you, and now they want to attack you, obviously. You would be instantly killed if all of them were there at once. Okay? And that would be bad. No one likes instant death. Also, if they were all there at once, maybe, they couldn't process how many AIs in the same area at one time. I don't know. I don't know the, little tiny, no, not little tiny, but the specs and mechanics of those AI and how many they can run on screen at once. But that could be part of the reason too, Monster Closet, because they couldn't have 30 AI running around, so they start with 10, and you kill a few, then more come, you kill a few, more come, so that does kind of, it does solve that problem. Bad thing about killing a few and more come, killing a few more come, is that you never know when you're going to finish it. You have no reference to when the end is, because you don't know how many more enemies are coming. So it feels like an infinitely spawning enemies, and it seems a bit unfair as you're playing it, but once you kind of so you know why it's there and what's going on, makes sense, and it's a good fit for that. Now, a lot of games have solved this monster closet problem, so they don't have very many AI on the screen. The AI health and damage doesn't get ramped up exponentially. They do it with like drop ships and stuff, so this is Halo, those tuning fork drop ships, right? So drop ships work pretty much the same way design-wise. You start with a few enemies, they die, dropship brings them in, unloads enemies. It's the exact same thing as a monster closet bringing enemies out, but it makes more sense in the world. It feels right, it feels better, but Borderlands, quirky world, not really going for this crazy, everything makes sense, because everything does not make sense in Borderlands. That's part of the fun. It's just crazy like that. They didn't need to program, animate, model all these dropships and everything coming in to supply enemies. They didn't need to do that, and they didn't. It cuts down production time, and it kind of works within the world. So, a few more little things here. With the cars, you can drive them there, the trucks and everything. I found that you couldn't save your loadouts. I don't know if this is just me, or this was everyone, but whenever I tried to save the loadout for my camouflage or my gun, and I restart the game, they wouldn't be there. So it got to the point where I just kept using the default one. Whatever was default, the machine gun with like the brown color, I used that, didn't stop. It's because I didn't want to change it every time. Maybe I go to rocket launcher every now and then, but pretty much default the entire time. Another thing with the cars is that if you're driving and someone teleports to you, then you get these little blue squares. It's like them materializing there. But that little particle effect, or if it is a particle effect, that little effect at least covers the entire screen. It's like, whoa, I can't see a thing now, right? Because they all burst out, and you're driving. All of a sudden, you can't see a thing for a few seconds. It's like, what? Why can't I see? He teleported to me, and I get punished for this? So, I'd say make those a bit smaller. Same with if you teleport somewhere, your screen also gets covered. Personally, I would take that out. Maybe they didn't want the person teleporting to be shooting right away, for whatever reason. But the point is that they blocked the entire screen. You couldn't see. Now, why would they even have those? Why not just take them out completely? It's because when someone would teleport there, then they would just instantly appear if you could see it actually happen. It'd be they're there one frame, they're not there one frame, and then they're there the next frame. So we don't want that. That obviously takes away from it. Takes away from the realism, breaks you out of it. Even in their quirky world, just something instantly appearing wouldn't really work. So they wanted to hide that. They wanted to hide the person clipping in, which makes sense, but they could have done it in a less obtrusive way. The last little thing in Borderlands 2 is the Nova shield. So this was, if your shield got knocked down all the way, these Novas would be coming out, what they call them. They would be like explosions, rings of fire kind of thing, spreading out all around you and hurting enemies within a certain radius. But the problem with this is that whenever I used it and my shield got knocked down and it's like exploding everywhere, I felt like I was the one getting shot at. I felt like all of a sudden my shield went down and now they're throwing like grenades at me or shooting rockets at me or something. I was like, I'm getting hit, I gotta run. So every time that my shield would go down, I'd feel like I was getting attacked even more than what I was, even though I wasn't even getting shot at. So it was kind of miscommunication there. It's meant to be a good thing, but it feels like it's not. Maybe they made that so because Nova was really good. Or maybe it was too good in playtesting, so they thought, hey, if you can't tell if you're getting hit as well, that kind of makes a little risk-reward thing. So that could be the reason. I don't know. If that is the reason, then, obviously makes sense, but I personally would rather have it, obviously, because I want to be more powerful. I'm a player, right? So I don't know all the design quirks and what discussions and what actually went wrong with certain things, but in my mind, I feel like I don't want to be feeling like I'm getting attacked when this Nova thing's going out, because it doesn't happen for any of the other shields. They get shocked. If they hit you and they get shocked, you don't feel the shock or anything. So the Nova, I feel like, just went a bit too far there. So as always, you can find me, designwellpodcast@gmail.com. Got any questions, comments, ideas for future topics? The websites are designwellpodcast.wordpress and .libsyn.com. So you can pick up the audio version of this there. And of course, YouTube, you're there probably watching this, so yeah, you know how to get back. I really hope. So next time I do one of these, probably be on Assassin's Creed 3. So stay tuned.